Bonjour and welcome to this tutorial on the 150 words task that appears on the higher writing paper. This is for AQA French and we will be looking at a writing task together. Alors, so first of all then, this is the way the task will look. So I guess the first thing to remind you of is that there are two choices for the 150 words task. So it's question 2 on the paper and you are given two choices. You only answer one of them. We do not answer both. So we are looking at this task here today. So we see vous écrivez un article sur le travail pour votre collège partenaire français. Décrivez les avantages et les désavantages d'être professeur, vos projets futurs pour le travail. Écrivez 150 mots en français. Répondez aux deux aspects de la question. And you can see here that it is worth 32 marks. So double the number of marks as the 90 words task. So it's a really important task to get right. So in order to get it right, we really have to plan this task. Now, we might be used to doing a quick plan for a 90 words task, but the 150 words task takes a little bit more in-depth planning. So the first thing that we do is we try to explode or unpack the 2 bullet points. You just have 2 bullet points to look at, but you've got to write 150 words. So we've really got to make sure that we have unpacked the 2 bullet points and made them into 4. So with here, we are writing an article about school for your partner French school, or about work rather, and you are needing to describe the advantages and disadvantages of being a teacher and your future plans for work. So these two, the first bullet point in particular kind of neatly unpacks itself into advantages and disadvantages. The second one, however, this shows us that we have to use the future tense, but it would be really useful to unpack that and include a different tense in there as well. As you know, we have to use all 3 tenses, a variety of tenses in all our writing at higher level. And so, although this one indicates the future tense, it is definitely important for you to think about where you are going to include your past tense. So, let's have a look at some planning together. Okay, so in order to plan our 150 words task, we need to, as previously mentioned, unpack the 2 bullet points and make them into 4 bullet points. So, advantages forms our first bullet point. So advantages of being a teacher. And the second bullet point can be disadvantages. And at this stage, I'm just going to jot down some ideas of things that I might want to say so that I don't repeat any information. So general advantages of being a teacher are the holidays and working with children, of course. Okay, and then the disadvantages are that it's tiring and lots of work. Okay, the second bullet point is asking us about our future plans for work. So we definitely want to answer that. So future plans, what job? We want to say what job we are going to be doing in the future. Okay. But I think I'm going to, as previously mentioned, include a different tense in here as well, so that I'm not just using the future tense, but also the conditional. So I'm going to think about if I won the lottery. So if I won the lottery, what would I do? Okay, so that helps me to use the conditional tense there as well. My cat is trying to help. Okay. And one of the techniques that we ask you to have a think about with the 150 words task is do your worst. Now, obviously, we don't want you to actually do your worst, but give it your worst shot. Give it your best shot, I guess. But do your worst is kind of the little phrase that we ask you to have a think about. And that is representative of, first of all, the 5 W's. So W stands for the 5 W's. So who, what, where, why, and when. And this is really going to help you to develop your answer. One of the challenges of writing a 150 words task is really to know where to begin. What do I have to write about? And to make sure that we develop our answer and include enough information, we can follow the structure of who, what, where, why, when. So if you're struggling for word count, you can ask yourself these questions. Have I spoken about who I do or did or am going to do this activity with? What's the activity? Where did I do it? Why did I do it? And when? And the O stands for opinion. As you know, opinions when we're studying languages are extremely important, and in terms of GCSE mark scheme they are essential, especially at higher level. So we're looking for variety of opinion, we're looking for justified opinion, so let's make sure that we include that. The R in worst stands for references to another person, so to a third person, so that we're not writing in the je form all the way through, but we are in fact varying our subject pronoun. So it might be that we talk about what our parents do for a living, or what our sister is going to study next year, for example. And the S stands for sequences. Sequences help us to vary our verbs. So first, I am going to study this. Next, I am going to work as this. After that, I am going to be very happy. So these help us to vary our verbs and to introduce new concepts and ideas. The T in worst stands for time frames. Now be aware that time frames doesn't necessarily just refer to a different tense. So for example, we have the past tense, which is I guess a time frame, the past, but we can use the imperfect tense, we can use the perfect tense. If we're feeling very fancy, we could even use the pluperfect tense. And this worst structure, do your worst, will really act as a checklist for when you're writing. So I've just begun to prepare a 150 words task here. So I've begun with the first bullet point, speaking about the positives of being a teacher. So I'm just going to walk you through what I have written first of all, and then we will write the second, third and fourth bullet points live on screen so that you can write along. So the first bit then, I've written être professeur est bien. So straight away, I've included my positive opinion here, that being a teacher is good. So the examiner can clearly see that I am answering the advantages of being a teacher. And I'm giving a reason why being a teacher is good. So, parce que on a beaucoup de vacances. I mentioned earlier that in my plan, I'm going to have lots of holidays, and that's one of the good things about being a teacher. So there's my point straight away. I've gone straight into it. I went back over this sentence as I wrote it, because as I was writing, I wrote parce que on a, and realised as I sort of read back over it that I need to make this sort of smash together these two words. As we know, we don't like a vowel followed by a vowel. So if that occurs at the end of one word and the beginning of next word, we get rid of the vowel, the E here, and replace it with an apostrophe. And these two squash together. Okay, so we say parce qu'on a rather than parce que on a. Beaucoup de vacances, and I've started the next sentence with a complex structure. So on peut, a modal verb plus an infinitive. On peut aller à l'étranger, you can go abroad. Ce qui est passionnant, which is exciting. So this little which is a sort of complex connective there, nicely used. À mon avis, so I've got an opinion phrase as well. So, which is exciting in my opinion. Ma tante est professeur. So in this next sentence, I've introduced a third person to give an example. Ma tante est professeur, and this helps me to then also use the past tense. So I've given an example of what my auntie did last year. L'été dernier, so last summer. Elle est allée, she went, and I'm obviously using the past tense here. And because I'm using être in the past tense, I'm making the past participle agree with the subject pronoun. So because it's she went, I've added that extra e onto aller. Okay, so elle est allée en Espagne pendant 4 semaines for 4 weeks. Quel plaisir. How delightful, or what fun. So yes, there is my past tense. I've got one example of the past tense here. And it's a development of my idea as to why being a teacher is good. My second point about being a teacher, the positives about being a teacher, was the working with children. So I've introduced the next sentence with a sort of connective phrase, aussi, also. Quand on travaille avec les enfants, when you work with children, c'est très rigolo. It's really funny. Et on s'amuse bien, and we have lots of fun. So I've used here a reflexive verb, on s'amuse bien, and it's an idiomatic expression in French as well. So a nice kind of showy-offy phrase there, on s'amuse bien, we have lots of fun. Alors. The next part then, the second bullet point, is the talking about the disadvantages of being a teacher. So we're going to start off to link the previous point to this point. We're going to start off with a connective, and as we know, cependant kind of changes the direction. So however, you could use but here as well, or on the other hand, something along those lines. So then I'm going to introduce this concept of the negative. Using an opinion phrase, je crois que, c'est un travail, vraiment fatigant. So in my plan, I said I was going to talk about it being tiring. So vraiment fatigant. Et il faut travailler. So I'm using here a modal verb, il faut, plus an infinitive, et il faut travailler dur. And one must work hard. De temps en temps. So here's a frequency phrase, from time to time. Les élèves. I've used the word enfant, so I'm going to use kind of a synonym for this here. Les élèves, the pupils, sont assez énervants. Don't be offended. But as we know, pupils can be quite annoying. Okay. And I'm going to follow this up with my opinion. Et je pense que c'est difficile. It's difficult. Okay. Now, to introduce a past tense, I'm going to give a little example of when that might be difficult. So, hier, yesterday, there's my time phrase. Au collège. Hier au collège. Un étudiant. So, here's another synonym for enfant or élève, a student. Un étudiant dans ma classe. N'a pas fait les devoirs. So here's our past tense, but I'm also using a negative. So has not done their homework. N'a pas fait les devoirs. Now you could, if you felt you were able to, use the pluperfect here. So instead of saying n'a pas fait, has not done, you could say n'avait pas fait, had not done. And that's also past tense, but that's called the pluperfect, had not done. Et le prof était, there's your imperfect, en colère, angry. Voila. Okay, now we're going to move on to the next bullet point. So thinking about our own future plans, I'm going to start with a phrase, moi j'ai décidé de, because it is a past tense, but it's a nice way to introduce plans for the future. So j'ai décidé de, followed by the infinitive, travailler avec les animaux. They say never work with animals or children, but here we go, talking about both. Dans le futur. And I'm going to give a reason, so car je les trouve mignons. Mignon meaning cute. Now I'm using a direct object pronoun here, which is kind of a showy-offy phrase. I'm also making sure that my adjective agrees with this. I'm describing animals, which are plural, so this needs to be plural as well. Okay. Then another phrase to refer to the future, j'ai l'intention de. J'ai l'intention de être. Now, as we mentioned previously, this is a problem, de être. So I'm going to get rid of my E and replace with an apostrophe. J'ai l'intention d'être vétérinaire. Vétérinaire. Donc, so, je dois étudier. I must study. Another modal verb with an infinitive there. Je dois étudier les sciences. This is what I have to study. Science. Okay. And then a sequencer. D'abord. Firstly. Future tense. Je vais faire. So futur proche there. I'm going to do. Je vais faire mon bac. I'm going to do my A-levels. Et après, there's another sequencer, afterwards. Et après, je voudrais aller. So another way of referring to the future, but with in fact the conditional here. I would like to go à l'Université de Manchester, to the University of Manchester. Okay, so we're now going to move on to the final paragraph, which we decided was going to be if I won the lottery, to include a conditional tense. So, si je gagnais, si is followed by the imperfect tense, if I won the lottery or loto. And then after this si clause, it's followed by the conditional tense. So I'm going to say, if I won the lottery, I would not work. Who would? Je ne travaillerai pas du tout. I would not work at all. And then I'm going to continue with my conditionals. Je ferai, I would do. Un tour du monde. A tour of the world avec mes amis. Et je bronzerai. So another conditional here. I would sunbathe à la plage. I'm running out of space on my page here. I'm going to turn over. You can still see that there. So I'm going to the top of the page here. Je rêve de, I dream of. Visiter l'Australie. So I dream of visiting Australia. Où je pourrais. Now this is a nice little phrase here, where I could. So you've got the conditional, but this is a modal verb in the conditional. Where I could see the kangaroos. Kangaroo. Okay. So this is our 150 word task as it stands at the moment. So if we look back over our plan and our sort of worst approach here, we've got 5 W's. I've mentioned who, what, where, why and when on various different occasions. I've definitely got opinion phrases in there with reasons. I have references to a third person with my aunt. I have my sequences with firstly, afterwards, and I did use time frames as well, referring to in the future and phrases such as next summer. So I've used this do your worst approach to hopefully ensure that my 150 words task shows off my French as best as I can. Now, those of you aiming for the very, very top marks might be considering using the subjunctive. The subjunctive in French is quite a complex idea. The subjunctive is in fact a mood rather than a tense, but it's something that really shows off fancy French and good knowledge of the language, and it's something that you can attempt to use without learning kind of the ins and outs of it. So I'm not going to go through how it's formed today, but I am going to give you 3 phrases that you can consider adding to your writing that will really help you to access those highest marks at GCSE. So those aiming for the 8s and 9s could consider using these 3 phrases in their writing, and they're very adaptable. So the first one is bien que ce soit, although it is. So bien que means although, and this is followed by the subjunctive, which is why you have ce soit rather than c'est. Okay. The second one is afin que je puisse, so that I can. So afin que is the phrase that means so that, and je puisse here is your subjunctive. Afin que je puisse, so that I can. And finally, autant que je sache, as far as I know. So autant que, as far as, je sache here is the subjunctive. Autant que je sache. So these are fantastic ways of showing off your excellent French knowledge, and they are helping you to access the 8s and 9s and those kind of star quality French phrases. Good luck!